All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Or I guess it's still morning. We got 15 minutes to spare in the morning. So good to see everybody. Um, I can't see you. I'm throwing out all these basic phrases and they don't fit here on the online platform. Sorry. But anyways, we are on Unit 3, Session 5. So, Unit 3, Session 5. This is the story of Joseph. And not going to lie, I was a little offended that we're only spending 1 week on Joseph. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, but hey, it's in there, and we're going to tackle it this week. Um, so, obviously, the story of Joseph covers a pretty large portion in the book of Genesis. It really from chapter 37 on, with the exception of a chapter or two, really focuses on the story of Joseph, and so we're gonna kind of hit the major parts of it. And going into this, the scripture doesn't even start until chapter 39, which is prior to our introduction of Joseph. And so we're not even starting at the beginning here because we've got to get to the major parts of the story. So, first point, Genesis 39, 21 through 23. This is where we see that God is faithful to be present with his people in adversity. God is faithful to be present with his people in adversity. We When we pick up the story here, Joseph is already enslaved and he is serving in Potiphar's household. And quickly we realize that he rises to the top of the ranks within Potiphar's household to where he is the overseer of all these slaves. And in this, I think it's important for us to understand that even though Joseph is in a really like terrible situation, he literally went from him being like the beloved son to being sold out by his brothers into the most powerful nation in the world as a slave. Um, but but God is still blessing him throughout. Um, uh, Joseph clearly has is a hard worker and clearly is one that because God's favor is on him, God's Potiphar's favor was also on him as well. But Joseph found himself being blessed in the middle of this difficult situation. And I love to stick towards the narrative here, but it also helps me think about, man, like when we go through tough stuff, are we counting the blessings that God gives us through the midst of those things? Something to think about for us right there. Um, Genesis 45, 1 through 8 is our next part where we pick up the story. We're skipping past the part where Joseph's in prison, past the part where he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. I would really encourage you to summarize that part of the story, as heavy as it is. However, we get to this point, and the reason I guess the writer of this curriculum has this as the second point because this is a really pivotal moment in the story of Joseph and really helps determine what we remember Joseph for. Um, so here we see that God is faithful to empower forgiveness and reconciliation. So God is faithful to empower forgiveness and reconciliation. And that word empower is very important right there because we see when Joseph realizes that, hey, these are my brothers coming up who sold me into slavery, and now they're the ones in need, and I'm the one in power. Joseph easily could have just had them executed on the spot. I mean, Joseph was the second in command in the most powerful nation in the world. So, in other words, there's only one guy in the known world that was more powerful than him. And Joseph uh, certainly had the ability and the authority to have them executed or enslave them like he was enslaved. But he relents. He plays some plays some little mind games with them and tries to um, kind of give them a dose of their own medicine. But at the end of the story, we see that he reveals himself and that, hey, I'm your brother Joseph that you sold into slavery. Um, you turned your back on me, you betrayed me, and here you are, in need of something that I can give. And so um, Joseph had to be empowered by God to be able to forgive. Because I guarantee you, most of us, even though if they were our siblings, if they did something that awful to us, we would not want to give them anything good in return, right? And so God empowers that forgiveness and that reconciliation. And that's important for us to understand in our own lives. Like we're selfish people, and it is our natural tendency to hold grudges and to not forgive and to not seek reconciliation. But it's only by God's power that we can see that happen. And then finally, in Genesis chapter 50, the last chapter in Genesis, verses 15 through 21, we see that God is faithful to bring good from evil. So God is faithful to bring good from evil. And this is really a whole biblical theme that we see throughout the entire Bible, right? We see it here that man, Joseph is sold into slavery, then becomes the most second in command in all of Egypt. And because he was thrown into slavery, he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream, which would ultimately lead to the salvation of many people, the physical salvation of them, because Joseph was able to prepare for the famine. So I know this. A lot of this assumes you know the story, and I pray and hope that you do. And it might be good just to read that story, really 37 through 50, this week in preparation for this. However, when we're tackling this in 1 week, there are going to be some things that we brush over. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for teaching for us, and we'll see you on Sunday.